Hi, I'm Kim Mayberry with Real Automation Solutions, and I want to talk to you today a little bit about how associates are costing you money, especially the new ones when they come out of law school. This really came to my attention. I was doing interviews about a year and a half ago. I went around to some different law firms in Salt Lake City and just trying to figure out what's happening, what's going right, what's going wrong. And one of the attorneys told me that, and they had about a 25 attorney firm, that they are no longer hiring new attorneys to basically people right out of law school because they were costing them too much. They couldn't afford them anymore. They would only hire them on after they had had 3 or 4 years of experience. But the problem is trends in the market is that people coming out of law school are not getting jobs. And so I've thought about this problem for the last year and a half, and as I've had interactions with different firms, different partners, different firm administrators, how do we solve this problem of new associates costing us money? And I've actually had some experiences where I've seen it where it hasn't been costing them money, and basically that they're actually profitable in the first year. So I wanted to kind of talk to you. This video is more about the psychology that is happening. As I've looked at it, I've read a number of books on psychology, looked at what it takes to get employees to enjoy what they do. Also went through and did a master's program and where we really dove into processes and how that's going to help people. And all of these things are starting to come together. But this first video is really about the psychology and what I see is happening. Now, certainly what I'm just going to describe today is not the case in every firm. It's a little bit more of a generality of the ones that I see that are struggling, that are saying that an associate is costing me money. These are some things that are factors that are playing into it. There certainly are other factors out there that I'm not going to talk about today that in your specific case would be different, and I expect that. So let's talk first a little bit about the theory here. So we've got this managing partner, and the managing partner has a certain salary, and that salary is basically based on billable hour. Now, in smaller firms, this isn't necessarily the case. This is in larger firms. But in any case, the salary is based on the amount of work that the partner does. And then usually what I've seen is that there's a kind of a bonus structure or a payout at the end of the year, depending on profitability of the firm. And everyone's kind of different in how they do this. So we have the salary of this managing partner, and a lot of it's based on billable hour. Then we have this associate that comes on. He's excited. He's out of law school. He's ready to take on the world. He also has a billable hour requirement that he needs to meet. And if he were to meet his billable hour requirement, you would be profitable as a firm in bringing him on. But what I'm finding is that this new associate isn't meeting it. He's not getting the billable hour requirements. He's missing it. And yet they're working hard. They're doing things, in a lot of cases, they're doing things that should meet it, but they aren't. So what happens? Why is it that the associate doesn't get to the billable hour or cover their salary, and why do we lose it? First, I think it's important to take a step back and talk a little bit about the expectations of an associate coming out of law school. So if we look at expectations post-law school, you go to law school. I don't know anyone who gets into law school that's a slouch. They get into the law school, they pass the exams, they go through, they get in. They have the 3-year law school experience, and they learn a lot, and it's really, and some of them decide that it's for them, some don't. But really, in order to get into law school, you really do have to be high achieving in order to get there in the first place. The second thing is that you really do expect to have a good salary coming out of law school. And you also know that you're going to take on some debt, and we're going to talk about a little bit more about that later. You come out of law school, you do want to contribute. You go in, some people do go in just strictly for a money reason. Other people want to give back, and there's more to it. But really, they want to contribute, and they are determined to succeed. And these are all things that are expectations. You're graduating from law school. These are things that you would expect. And the other problem is that law school, you don't learn everything that you need to know in order to then start practicing law. So I think there is a recognition that there is more to learn. And this is critical. And if you start looking at expectations, and certainly those people that look, if you think back to after your law school, I'm sure you could add more things onto this. You might take a few things away, but these are kind of overall generalities. So what happens? We've got these expectations, we start into the associate, and we bump up against a few things. And here's what happens from an associate standpoint. Is because they recognize that they need to learn more, they end up doing more in the way of clerical tasks. So they get into a situation that they're not really finding the fulfillment that they wanted. And this is usually, a year into it, 6 months into it. But they're confined to clerical tasks. They're confined to things that they're not enjoying. They're not, they know they got to learn, but they're not feeling that they're contributing as much. They're also finding that they're not getting much in the way of mentoring. And here's the reason why I think that mentoring doesn't happen. Is one, if the partner who's is in charge of this associate, their salary and things are based on billable hours. They cannot afford to give much time to the associate. Because if they give away from the time, that means that their salary is going down. And they're not going to meet their billable hours. So we've got one tick against us. It means that we're not getting trained, which means that we're really getting into this cycle. I mean, it's just, if you look at it, we're starting a cycle which unfortunately can start to spiral down. Now, there are associates that get out of this and make it through. I'm not saying that, but we do get into a cycle. We get into work that's not enjoyable and tedious. And which still is coming back to the contributes. They're not seeing high achieving. They're doing clerical work. They're slow to meet their own expectations. Which, when I talk about this is salary-wise, is you're not making what you thought you were going to do. So there's a little bit of a problem there. We also have this debt cloud that's over us. So you come out of law school, you've got over $100,000 in debt. The numbers that came out in 2016 said that the average salary out of law school is $94,000. That means there's a lot of people that are below that, and yet they've got over $100,000 in debt, and they're starting to wonder, is this really the profession for me? And there's other things psychologically that are starting to happen at this point. But you do have the debt cloud, and I think that does have an effect on what happens. I also see that there's mounting frustrations that happen, that they're just not happy. It's just not working out the way they thought it was going to work out, and it becomes a problem. So this is the psychology that starts to happen with the associate. And I think it's important to understand that we're in this situation. Now let's talk a little bit about the partner, because the partner's got some frustration too. The partner, like I talked about, no time for associate due to billable hour requirements. Because if he takes time away from doing his normal work, once again, his salary goes down or his bonus goes down. Because he's having to devote time there, because the associate's not, if the associate were contributing to the bottom line, that everything would kind of equal out and you'd be okay. but it's not happening. The managing attorney gets frustrated that the associate needs help. Kind of an example is, and I was talking to a firm administrator about this very thing. He said, an associate spending about 9 hours, in his example, is 9 hours on the task. Well, that task really should have only taken 2. But because the associate is now having to go through and research, go through and find stuff on his own, doing all these things because he's not getting this mentoring going on, he's now overcharging, so you now have a write-off, which is where the bottom line gets hit, because he just spent 9 hours on task, but it really should have only spent 3. So we get into a cycle that we're in. You can see where this is going, that it does become problematic. Next, they start losing long-term vision. And really, to this point, it's really been that a law firm has to have a long-term vision that they're going to bring on these new associates. They know that they're going to lose money for the first couple of years, and then with the idea that they're going to then make that up in years 3 through however long. But if you look at the psychology, after year 2, the associate is still doing clerical tasks. They're frustrated. They're not getting things done that they thought they would. They bought their time, but yet because of all these things that happened during these first 2 years, in some cases, the managing partner loses faith in them, no longer trusts them because they didn't perform the task, which means that they're continued to do clerical tasks. And so the associate then has to leave in order to get to the salary, in order to get to the contributing and his expected salary. So that's the psychology that's really that I'm seeing happening, and I'm seeing it in a lot of firms. So next, and the associate is not contributing to the bottom line. So if you look at all these things, it seems a little bleak. There's not a lot of hope here. But as I've looked at it, and I love processes and looking at how do we help, what can we do to put things in place, I actually think that there's a solution to this. And I have a theory on how this can be done. And in my next video on this, I'm going to tell you more about my theory. If you'd like to talk to me before then, please feel free to give me a call. My number's here on the website. Look forward to speaking with you.